Order, shot fire, officer down, shot fire, officer down. Got a city officer down, shot fire.
223, be advised, we have a visual on enemy paratroopers in grid Papa uniforms.
Welcome to the Resilient Warrior Nation, a podcast dedicated to inspiring hope and healing for first responders, military veterans, and anyone facing PTSD and trauma. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Resilient Warrior Nation podcast. I'm your host, Mike Morgan. This is a podcast that was created to inspire and give hope to first responders and veterans who find themselves going through it, as I call it. We experience all kinds of traumas, including PTSD, and my life was changed by the Sean Ryan podcast. A guest named Eddie Penny was on there telling his life story. This is Eddie's company. This is not a proclamation. I will forever wear the shirt until Eddie comes on my podcast, which it's already done in universe. The question is, when's it going to be? So I just want to pay it forward by bringing on ordinary people who've done extraordinary things with their lives, show their journeys, both the highs and lows, show how they've healed, show that you could do it the same way that we've done it, including myself, because there is nothing different about us than you. We are the same. So I'm very excited about today's guest. Today I have Kenny Mitchell. Kenny Mitchell started his career with the Virginia Beach Fire Department in 2002. Kenny was assigned to Fire Station 4 and served time on the Marine Incident Response Team during his time with VBFD as well. In 2007, Kenny transferred to the Chesterfield County, Virginia Fire and EMS, where he served until his retirement on April 1st, 2024 as a lieutenant. Kenny served in a variety of assignments during his time with Chesterfield FD, including lead instructor in the training division, a member of the Marine Incident Response Team, a member of the peer support team since 2009, and the department interview panel. Kenny's experienced deep mental health challenges himself, both on and off the job, giving him a deep appreciation and empathy for others going through it, including the loss of a friend to suicide just 2 weeks after meeting for lunch, spurring him to create Operation Yellow Tape. Kenny has spoken at several conferences and organizations across the country, along with numerous podcast appearances, and also has his own podcast, Operation Yellow Tape, which assists thousands monthly, both inside and outside the yellow tape. We're going to drive home and continue to live by the mantra, there are too many of us to ever feel alone because we are the too many. Kenny, welcome to the podcast, brother. This is, our fourth reschedule, and unfortunately in a microcosm of our jobs, the first reschedule was due to a shooting on February 22nd, this past February, of two Virginia Beach police officers, Cameron Gervin and Christopher Reese, who were both shot in line of duty and killed. Kenny was forced to reschedule as a result of that. And on our next scheduled recording date, Kenny had lost another friend to suicide, spurring Kenny to, obviously reschedule again. So it just drives home the point that we're trying to, bring to you guys of not only the danger of the job, but, the inherent mental challenges that we face as first responders. So, brother, I'd like to welcome you to the podcast. It is great having you on.
Man, it's an honor to be here. I listen to everything you've done. You're doing big work. But yes, this is our fourth time. The Virginia Beach shooting had me heading that way for peer support, and then unfortunately I lost a close friend to suicide. As you know, you and I talk. You and I talk a lot. I confide in you. You're someone I talk to a lot. But no, man, I'm honored to be here. You've had some heavy hitting folks on this podcast, and I'm just excited. So thank you.
Absolutely, brother. And it's funny. I'm going to assume it, but I'm never going to put words in your mouth. You're going to echo the same sentiments. For me, it's 14 months. 14 months ago, if you would have told me that I'd be in this space right now, number one, hosting a podcast. Number two, the subject matter that it entails, I would have told you you're out of your mind because I never saw myself in this space. But, we'll talk about it later. During my journey with ayahuasca, as I came out of my first journey, I was told, as clearly as you and I were speaking by the universe, that my PTSD was healed. And again, it's not linear, it ebbs and flows, but essentially I was healed. And my job in life from that point forward was to go forth and help other first responders and vets heal theirs. And I said, okay, out loud. Wasn't sure how I was going to implement it, but it's just been an incredible journey. I've gotten to meet people like yourself. The caliber of men and women that I've been introduced to in the past 14 months is mind-boggling. I'm a 30-year retired police officer. I'm used to dealing with people who have an agenda, almost 100% of which lie to your face with everything they do. Now it's a total opposite. Everyone's asking how I can help. Everyone's got a noble purpose and pursuit themselves, and it is incredible. I'm just blown away, honored, and humbled that you want to come on my podcast. To be honest with you, brother, I love it. We're going to change someone's life today.
Well, I can tell you this: I was in Port Orange, Florida, and I was in Kentucky all in the last month, and several people there knew about your podcast and listened.
Whoa.
And yeah, man, and I need to get you their names. A couple of them would probably be amazing guests, but some of them are just podcast listeners for their own mental health and to know they're not by themselves. And I swear, I was in Port Orange and I was in Kentucky just last Monday, right here, right this time last week, and 15 people knew about this podcast I was about to come on to. So you're doing strong work. You're impacting people, and one at a time.
Exactly.
One at a time.
Exactly. Yeah, I was told by the universe, I've been put through everything in my life to be here at this moment to do that. So I have credibility with the men and women I speak to. Not only have I walked the walk, or I'm talking to talk now, but I've walked the walk. I've been there. I've suffered through the PTSD. I've had an opioid addiction. And listen, man, I will bare my soul to help others. If I sit here and pretend like my life's been, rainbows and sunshine and kumbaya my whole life, then I'm just a poser and I'm worth nothing. So we've all been through hard times, man. That's just life, not just our jobs that bring it to us.
For sure.
So, Ken, please tell everyone about yourself, where you were raised, childhood. What was little Kenny like?
Oh, man, little Kenny had a lot better hair than this.
Who you telling, brother?
No, man. Man, I feel, you talk about those ACEs scores and everything. I feel I had a good childhood. My parents will be married 54 years this December.
Nice.
I'm a first-generation firefighter. I was born in Petersburg, Virginia, raised in Chesterfield and Richmond area. Played sports, man, played football and baseball, went to college to play some baseball. But,
Nice.
when I think about it, though, you kind of spark something in me. My dad ruled with an iron fist. I mean, my dad, I walked on eggshells, and
Yep.
it may not be, this may not come across to some of my listeners, but my dad had hit me in the face before. He had struck me, and it wasn't a regular thing, but it's not a good thing. And I took that into my fatherhood. I never put my hands on my daughter, so I didn't do that. I'm not saying he did it all the time, but when I think back now, I had a great childhood. I had what I needed, but I did walk on pins and needles, and I was afraid to death of him, and that's not always good. And I think sometimes, I think firefighters and emergency services, we gravitate towards protectors and helpers. But to answer your question, I had a good childhood. I had two parents working. It was a lot of sports involved. It was family. But I have been thinking a lot about growing up and how did walking on eggshells every 5 minutes and feeling like I couldn't please anybody and feeling like I wasn't good enough in school or whatever. What did it do? And did it do anything at all? I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and play my ACEs scores through the roof, but I know it has a couple points to it. So yeah, man, my dad's brother was a police officer. He retired a sergeant out of Maryland, and Prince George County. And I remember him coming into the house, and the smell of his, I said this before on a podcast, the smell of his leather in his uniform. He kept it so shiny, and he looked so good in his uniform. My dad used to ride with him, so my first introduction as a young child or boy was to the police. And then we'd go by the fire stations, and we would see the firefighters, but my dad would ride with his brother, and sometimes they'd catch a call leaving the driveway. So that was kind of an introduction to the police work. I remember worrying about them as they pulled out of their driveway. The police job kind of was in my mind growing up, but I can close my eyes and hear my uncle walking through the kitchen. He's since passed, and his leather belt and his shoes, and he wore that state trooper. He wasn't a trooper.
Oh, yeah, the smoky hat.
He wore that real tight hat, man. And we were very proud of my uncle, and everywhere he went, we were proud of him. So Man, my childhood was probably like so many of ours, just filled with some ups and downs and some things I think about now that probably weren't too good for me, but it sculpted me in who I became. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. Went off to college and got a degree in graphic design because I wanted to chase women, drink beer, and play baseball. Yeah,
And everyone knows that's a degree to get if you want to do those three.
yeah, and that's what I did in college. And after college, things kind of changed for me. So that's a little bit of me kind of just growing up, I guess. A lot of sports, a lot of friends. Um, just growing up, man, in the '80s and '90s, best time ever, I feel.
Yeah, it's definitely more of an innocent era as you look back. I wish we can go back to that in certain respects. Technology's great, but the personal in society has been kind of taken out, man. You see these kids in these phones, and it's an entirely different podcast. But so
Yeah.
once you graduate, what kind of spurs your interest in getting to the FD?
Yeah, I graduated from college and had a bachelor's degree in graphic design. It landed me in Nags Head, North Carolina, by the ocean.
Nice.
And after about 2.5 years, I got promoted to what would be considered like an art director position. And that landed me in Norfolk, Virginia. And I landed in Norfolk, Virginia, at the Virginian Pilot newspaper. And for 6.5 years, I worked as a graphic designer, art director, had the pager, had the new bigger phones, had the company car, wearing the slacks, wearing the shirt. And on one beautiful Tuesday morning in September, 3,000 people were murdered. And I say that because not just me, but thousands of men and women across this country changed their path, and that was mine. I knew there was more to my life than sitting in some chair making some publisher rich. I could not pull myself away from the television and the cleanup and what could I do to get in the fight. I really wanted to join the military and to go throw some lead down and hurt the people who hurt us.
Sure.
But I know I wanted to make an immediate impact. I kept thinking I was probably going to have a family. How can I get into the fight now? And during all the cleanup and thinking about my uncle's time, police and fire hit me. And I decided to start immediately within 2 or 3 weeks of 9/11. I was applying in Chesterfield, in Richmond, Virginia Beach, in Maryland. It's too many to name.
Right.
Fire departments all over the place, different states I'd never even been in. And I was picked up by Virginia Beach Fire in 2002 as a support technician and became paid in 2003, and the rest is history. But for me, the fire service came calling because of 9/11. I wanted to get into the fight somehow. I wanted to serve my community, and I just I could not stop thinking about 9/11. I wanted I wanted to feel that brotherhood and to feel what it's like to be a part of all of that. And I'm not the only one. I travel a lot, and a lot of people tell me they changed directions because of 9/11, and I'm one of those guys. So that's what sparked it in me. And I got hired by a couple police departments as well, but
Okay.
the fire department's academy started sooner, and I wanted to get into the fight immediately.
Yep.
And I was lucky enough to where Virginia Beach lined up perfectly. And after 6.5 years in corporate America, and my degree that hangs on the wall that has nothing to do with what I'm doing now, and
Yep.
service came a calling.
You have an accounting degree that's worth about the same thing as yours sitting on that wall. First day out of at my new job, fell asleep 11 a.m. Walked over to the cubicle desk of a guy I just met. Seemed really cool. I'm like, "You like this shit, bro?" He's like, "F no, I hate it." I'm like, "There is no way I'm sitting in a cubicle the next 35 years of my life, making no difference to anyone." And
Yeah.
it was that point. I wasn't sure what I was going to do in my life, but that certainly wasn't it. And then came to the conclusion that law enforcement was going to be the way I was going to proceed. So, all right. So you get into this job, you start doing it. Are you absolutely loving it? Everything you thought it would be
You know,
when you get out of the academy?
yeah, I believe so. I was assigned to Virginia Beach Engine 4, Fireboat 1, Zodiac 4. I noticed immediately that it was a lot like being on a team. I liked running the calls for our Leo and emergency services who listened to this. I was a black cloud. from the very go. My whole entire career, 23 years worth of it, I was a black cloud. If there was something bad to respond to, it was going to be me going, and I'd walk in the stations, and people were like, "Oh man, here we go." But no, it was everything that I thought it would be. I journaled my whole entire career.
Really?
Yeah, I was in 2002. Chris Ludford, he's a retired battalion chief. He told me, "Man, do two things, man. I want you to journal your career and try to keep yourself in as much shape as you can possibly as this career goes on." And in my journaling, I've noticed since speaking out more about this in 2020, I remember seeing a lot of guys, man, in the field who were divorced and who had child custody battles, who had substance abuse problems, who had girlfriends on the side, who had tempers like I had never seen before. And I've mentioned this on podcasts before too. I think I saw that snowball coming, didn't know what it was, just thought it was blue collared, badass, angry men ready to fight the next red beast. But what I was witnessing in 2002 and 3 and 4 and 5 as I started, I was witnessing post-traumatic stress that we weren't talking about yet.
Yeah.
But again, to answer your question, it was what I thought it would be, kind of, with the calls we were running, but nothing quite compares you for seeing someone's insides on the outside, some dead children, somebody's brains all over the place. So I was ready for it. I was kind of knew what to expect, but yes, out of the academy, it was everything I had hoped it would be. Every day was different, and I worked with some very salty, some of the best men I've ever worked with. Was that first shift of mine, 25-year men from the go, and here I was, a brand new corporate man who had to prove himself to these guys, who've been firemen since they were 18. It was not easy to do, but I made it happen, and we were a good crew.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, as you say, you in your mind you're prepared for what's coming, but in reality you have no idea what's coming, man. Nor did I. I thought I did, but until you're there was so many times stuff is going down, man, and I'm like, I can't fucking believe this is happening right now. You know, it was just mind-boggling, and it's not just the tragic stuff that's an entirely different matter in some respects. Like just even the action stuff.
Yeah.
I remember we were in a pursuit one time doing 125 on the interstate. I look at my buddy. I'm like, bro, this is nuts, man. He's like, I know, I love it, and we did. It just kind of gets in your blood. It's inexplicable. You understand it, but to someone else, man, we're adrenaline junkies for those who truly love the job.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing like doing what we do. Everyone else is running away. We're running towards, and we love it.
And I'm not trying to say anything about the men and women who decide not to run towards danger, but there's something in a person that wants to get in that fight and that wants to possibly throw their life on the line for strangers. And like you, I wanted everything in my body wanted me to go towards everything that was violent, you know, the shootings, the stabbings, the fires, the drownings, the pursuits like you. I mean, that's what some people are born to fucking do, is to be warriors and to fight with swords. And this is just our version of that, in my humble opinion, from many centuries ago. And yeah, I loved every minute of what I was doing and trained to do.
Yeah, I agree with you. In older times, we would have been the warriors of that time, and there's nothing better about us. There's nothing worse about us. We're just different, man. And it's nothing, no braggadocio. It's just we're different.
Yeah,
you know?
our lifespan would have been a lot shorter than the guy who
exactly.
who was making shoes for the horses. You and I wouldn't have lived very long, but we were fucking needed.
Yep.
So yeah, man.
Absolutely. So, as your time is accruing now, are you noticing changes in yourself? You know, I remember one time I was early on, and I was actually, my buddy had committed suicide in '05, so I was about 12 years in, and I was so sad, and I'm looking in the mirror, and I'm trying to make myself cry, and I could not cry, and I'm literally like, man, what's wrong with you? You broken, bro?
Yeah.
You know?
I was about 10 years in, and I started noticing that I wasn't quite crying at funerals. I could have given a shit about somebody else's day at work. My patience was was not where it needed to be. But for me, man, I was 10 years into my job in 2013 when my daughter's mother, she was 34. I'm not going to talk too deeply about it, but she had an unexpected medical emergency, and myself and a police officer were there for her, and we were there and tried to revive her, did CPR, did all the things, and my daughter was 7 at the time, and I'd already been on a job 10 years. To make a very long story short, I talk about it during my presentations. For me, 2013 was the start of a very dark mental health decline that I hid from the entire world, except from my daughter. I was softball coach. I was all these things, volunteer teacher of the year, or helper of the year. But inside, I was a fucked up, guilt-ridden, survivor's guilt, anger. I was drinking. I was in a spiral from 2013 until 2020 that I have no idea how I survived, honestly. But for me, that day she died in March was the start of everything to come. Almost immediately, I felt the irritation and the mood swings and the anger and the hatred to God and everything just building up in me, and it never got better. It never ever got better. As you know, in our line of work, we continue to run the calls. I continued doing CPR on 34-year-old women that broke my heart, and men, and I would see those images. I'm trying to raise a daughter. There's no playbook for this. You go from 2 incomes to 1 income in the snap of a finger. It doesn't make any sense to your daughter who believes in the Easter Bunny and Santa Claus, and you're trying to listen to her cry herself to sleep, and it just destroyed me. And I made a lot of mistakes back then by not getting her or me an immediate therapy. But yeah, I started to notice things before Jessica died, and it really poured on me what I refer to as outside of the yellow tape once she did die.
Yeah, my deepest condolences on your loss, first off. Yeah, we compartmentalize things we see on the job, but we do the same thing in our personal lives, because although the stigma is getting released and we're evolving as a people and learning how important it is for us to decompress and process these things we see, we certainly weren't learning that or taught that when you and I were going through the job.
No.
And we see how devastating it could be when these things manifest themselves. And number one, we all think we're alone. First of all, no one is alone. There is, I thought myself when I was going through my stuff, no one else will understand. Unfortunately, there are thousands upon thousands that are going through the same thing.
Yeah.
Know exactly what we're talking about, but we will not allow ourselves to be vulnerable and speak about it. And that's been my greatest treasure in psychedelic therapies. It allowed me to become vulnerable, and I was able to talk about my feelings for the first time in my entire life. I was very sensitive as a kid. My father was pretty tough dude, mentally abusive, I guess, really. And to deal with that pain, man, I just calloused up because I just couldn't go through that pain all the time. And then you start feeling nothing. And then we bring this into these hyper-masculinized professions that we have. And, it's self-preservation. You just can't take on all this pain that you see. So what do, man? You callous up. You don't feel anything up. We call it compartmentalizing, but it's burying.
Right.
And eventually it's a saturation point, man. And when that lid pops, that shit is all coming out, and it is not coming out in a healthy manner.
No, not whatsoever. And well, I always tell myself, when I think back then, I kept telling, I knew I needed to get some help, and I was talking to some guys that I knew they were struggling too, and none of us wanted to talk about it because my mindset was, if you hadn't walked up on a December night at 2:30 in the morning, like I told you before, and you smelt the rubber of an overturned vehicle with 3 people trapped and several people ejected and killed, and the smell of an overturned vehicle with fatalities, if you hadn't smelt that or been part of that, I got nothing in common with you, and I can't talk to you. But then again, my brothers who had been through that, I wasn't talking to them either because I was afraid of showing weakness. I didn't want them to think that I was struggling whatsoever. I was totally caught up in the stigma, the culture, whatever it is, of asking somebody for help. I was needing it.
Yeah, yeah, we do. There's no getting around it. What we see is not normal, and your mind cannot process it because it is just so incredibly painful that we just bury it instead of dealing with it, man. It just, again, we compartmentalize, bury, whatever you want to call it, and again, eventually it's going to pop up. Speaking about what you just said, I received a call a few months ago from a former coworker, and he was watching one of my podcasts, and midway through, he said he stopped, and he just got upset. He's like, I need to talk to Morgs. But he's like, bro, he's like, I felt like a fool calling you. And he goes, and then I'm watching another episode a few days later, and I start crying. And I pause it, and he's like, fucking, I'm calling you. So he called me, left a message. This was me getting back in touch with him. And he's like, who am I supposed to talk to about this? He goes, the only other people that are going to understand are cops. But what cops are in touch with their feelings to be able to speak to me, to help me? He goes, the only person I know is you, because you've done, you're doing these reels and you're speaking about being vulnerable. And I'm like, brother, whenever this was, 11 months ago, I wouldn't have been able to do this, to speak to you like I'm speaking to you now. Yeah, you'd speak to me and I'd understand. And I'd be like, yeah, brother, trust me, man, I know how you feel. That's it. It would end it right there.
Yeah.
Because we just don't allow ourselves to be vulnerable. And I think we make that mistake too, especially with family members, is that we hold everything inside and we don't think anyone else is going to understand. When I talk now, the worst thing you could do is go home and shut your wife out. Now, I'm not saying that you give her every detail of what happened, but you could kind of speak in generalities so she knows what's going on with you. And if you need time, tell her. Like, I think a great thing to do is when you're done with your tour, tell your wife the first half hour when I get home, kind of let that be my time. Let me decompress, do my own thing. And then, half hour after that, we could start talking. And if it's something heavy, maybe I'll just tell you what's going on. Maybe I need that night. I'll tell you. But that next day, you have to speak to her about it.
Yeah.
You can't just shut your spouse, your significant other out saying that they won't understand, because they'll understand a lot more. And it's going to be horrendous for your relationship if you keep adopting that mantra. She's not going to understand. She's not going to understand. So it's essentially like you have this life. You're not cheating on her, but it's like you have this separate life, and she cannot be a part of it. You will not let her in. And it's destructive to any relationship.
Yeah. Can I give one example real quick?
The floor is yours, brother.
Because somebody might be watching right now, and an example of this for me, and you just nailed it with, you don't have to come home and tell all of the horrific things that you've seen, but for me, working on the ocean front most of my career around water, I experienced a lot of drownings. I was always around drownings. And one of the biggest arguments that I remember me and Jessica having one day was we were in the beach, and I had never talked to Jessica about the drownings that I had run and body recoveries and what it's like to pick up a 6-month-old out of the ocean that drowned while waiting out there with her mother. I had never expressed to her how frightened I was and hypervigilant I was about the ocean and the drownings. And I came down to the ocean front one time and I couldn't see Carly. And I screamed, Carly, Carly, where are you? And I was screaming. And she looked up and she goes, Kenny, what's wrong with you? I'm like, where's she at? She's like, she's walking over there with my sister. And I'm like, well, why didn't somebody tell me that? And I storm back up to the beach house and I go inside and I do my thing. And hours later she comes up and she goes, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, nothing's wrong with me. I couldn't see Carly. I was afraid to death she had drowned, but I didn't know where she was. But imagine had I stopped 2 years earlier and told her, I'm always, I want to tell you the details, but I'm picking dead children out of the water. My family and you being around the ocean scares me and gives me something that's making me feel hyper vigilant all of a sudden. Had I shared that with her, she would have already knew when she saw me coming down that beach, hey, there comes Kenny. Hey, Kenny, Carly's with my sister. So it's not that you have to come home and tell all of the horrible things you see, but you have to come home and talk about the things that are bothering you, that do hurt you the most, because when you find yourself at an amusement park and kids are screaming and you get moody, they may not know that. When you find yourself at a pool party and the kids are screaming and you get in an argument, they don't realize you did CPR on a 7-year-old 6 weeks ago. So ladies and gentlemen, it may be something small to you, and you may think you can't tell your spouse or loved one or whoever anything, but you can. You can tell them some small parts of what this job has done and why it has caused you to act like you might act. So it's kind of the example I give sometimes, because people always say, well, I'm not telling my wife or husband about, well, you don't have to tell them all the big things, but I would definitely tell them some of the things that bothered you the most. And for me, it was the ocean. And I just wish, and she's gone now, but I just wish I had set her down and said, hey, that scares me. And when I can't see my daughter in the crowd of 200 ass clowns at the beach, it worries me. It bothers me. I have a vision of plucking a 6-month-old out of the ocean who's been in the water for 2 days. Can you just work with me? And she would have said, yes, Kenny, anything you need. So you nailed it when you said we have to go home and be better at talking to those who love us.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect example. And, for guys and girls watching this, dissect Kenny's example. Now, have that reversed. Kenny's wife does that to Kenny. Kenny's going to be like, what the hell is going on with her? That's not normal. But now, you talk, and I hate the word trigger, but Kenny explains the trigger and why he's acting like this. 100% reasonable, makes perfect sense. Your communication with your spouse is perfect. Like, everything just kind of falls into place beautifully, as opposed to the conflict that just has arisen over, we know the organic nature of what just happened. They have no clue.
Yeah.
So, you can't think that, they should know. No, you know what? They shouldn't know. They've never been in this position, so how would they know?
Yeah.
They have nothing to reference this.
And you have to think, man, Jessica went to her grave not realizing why I acted that way.
Yeah.
She went to her grave not understanding why I was busting up weed eaters and tearing things to pieces and getting pissed off over everything. She didn't know. I didn't talk about it.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, what are they led to believe? Kenny's got a crazy anger management problem. That's
right.
it. And there's no other, not proof, but there's no other reason for why he's acting other than he's kind of crazy. No, there's perfect reason why Kenny's acting the way he's acting, but Kenny's got to explain to Jessica why. Mike's got to explain to Elise why I'm feeling this way. And kind of to piggyback on your story, my godmother had texted me after watching one of my episodes of my podcast. And during the course of that podcast, I was telling my guest that it was essentially like how, people expect us to be normal after. And this was a story of me getting a call to a house where Dad had hung himself on an oak beam in the kitchen. And luckily he was found by his brother, as opposed to his kids and his wife were outside when we got there. But, we're handling this call. At the end of the call, I'm literally holding this guy's legs up so the ME's assistant could cut him off, or however he took the ligature off his neck. And 5 minutes later, I'm back at service going to, some bullshit call. And I probably have an attitude, or, I'm sure I wasn't myself. However I was not myself. And it was a reason for it. But, this person that I'm going to now be dealing with has no idea what just happened. And my godmother was like, I really appreciate that story. It shows me police in a whole different light. I never realized that. I thought after something like that, they tell you guys to go home. Like, no, we're on to the next call, And we expect that people will know, but people have no idea. If they don't have family, even if they do have family, if we're not going home talking to them, they have, you can't put it in they can't put it in context because they have no idea what we're going through, because we're keeping it to ourselves.
No, I can remember being on a call, changing somebody's 9-volt battery in their smoke detector, and take a glance down at my turnout gear, and I saw blood on my knee because we had been at an overturned vehicle an hour before that, and I kind of missed that during my decon. So here we are standing in somebody's house, changing the battery, and they're pissed off that we're not changing them soon enough so they can go back to bed. They have no idea we just seen 3 people killed in a car wreck 2 hours ago. It's not their fault. It's not the community's fault, but your brain going, like dispatchers, man, going back and forth and back and forth. And I remember looking at my knee and like, there's the blood from the guy's brains that were dripping out of his ear. But yeah, to your point, they don't know, and we probably come across as different on some of these calls. Like we come across different with our families because we change, and our family continues to get good sleep. They continue to have sleep hygiene, and they continue to to eat well, and we begin to change, and we don't tell our families. I'm never going to believe for 1 minute that shift work is causing all of the divorce in our community.
Oh,
I don't believe it. I
no
think
way.
no. I think all the injuries and illnesses are from sleep deprivation, and I think that the divorce and the relationship problems and the friendships being ruined are from communication, from us changing and not communicating it with the folks who love us the most, who are going to be there at the end of this short journey of 20 years. We change, and they're staying the same. They're, who the hell did I marry? Who's this person become? And we just wait too late on the draw to tell somebody, I'm hurting, I'm
Yeah.
struggling, I'm crying in the shower, I'm punching my steering wheel, I'm taking everything to heart on every single call. And then what I refer to as outside the yellow tape, I have an inside and an outside. Outside's bearing down on me too. It's all come together, and it's a perfect storm, and we do a horrible job still to this day. As
Yeah.
fire, police, military, emergency services, we don't do a great job still letting people in.
Yeah, I agree. And those changes that you speak about come incrementally. It's not like this huge change where all of a sudden Kenny's one way and then he's the other. We don't even understand it ourselves. I remember looking in the mirror one time. This is after years on the job. And I'm like, who the fuck are you? Like, it's little, just, this one thing every day. And all of a sudden, man, it's this evolution that you didn't realize had happened, has happened. And now you're looking back. So we didn't realize it. How can we explain it to anyone else?
Right.
You
Yeah.
must have amazing self-awareness, number one. But, if you have that communication and your spouse is able to tell you, like, Kenny, what's going on? Or ask you what's going on. You're doing this. I'm kind of worried about you. And we don't snap on them and yell, what the hell you think? Da, 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 da. Sit there and talk to them because they're usually right. It's not fair that we come home and just heap all this shit on them that we see, that we get from everyone else heaping on us.
Yeah.
They didn't sign up for all this shit that we're bringing home in certain respects. But they're there for us. We just have to communicate with them what's going on.
And I talk about it when I present. You're going to be the first person, whether you want it to or not, you're going to be the first person to experience the sign in yourself. It's not going to be a doctor the first time. It's not going to be a counselor. It's not going to be anything. It's going to be you noticing that your patience level is shit, that you're argumentative, you're toxic, you're faking kidney stones to get pain pills, to relax at home. I did that. I'm embarrassed. I never would have admitted this 3 years ago, but the only way to get through to people was to be honest, and I did that. I faked a kidney stone one afternoon so I could relax, and I figured that would help me. Luckily, it didn't turn into a big problem, thank God. But I faked out the doctor, and I knew I was the first person to feel the symptoms. And the goal and what you're doing and what people are trying to do is, how do we get a man or a woman to, when they first start to feel those signs of changing, of cloudy thoughts and suicidal thoughts and anger and depression and hypervigilance and all the buzzwords, when you first feel that shit, how do we get you to pull the hammer and go get help? That's what I'm working so hard on, and you're working so hard on, because why did I go 7 years like that?
Yeah. And what do you tell them? What's the answer?
I tell them, you have to immediately look in the mirror and realize that you have got to love yourself more than the strangers that you serve. You have got to love yourself more than even sometimes the family and friends you're around. I'm not saying you have to love yourself more than your children, but you've got to love yourself more than the strangers that you serve. So, when you feel those signs, when you feel those symptoms, when you know that you're not the Kenny from October of 2002, something's happening, something's changing. This is not going to get any better. The calls aren't going to stop. They're only getting worse. The cars are getting faster. The roads are getting wider. The population's more violent. Things aren't going to get easier. So love yourself, man. Love yourself, ladies, and decide to get help. And that is pretty much the main advice that helped me get myself into a better direction is I realize I'm helping all these people. I'm giving them all the resources. I'm petting their dog and locking their doors and putting slippers on their feet and taking them to the hospital and giving them resources and putting a pretty blanket on them and putting a pillow behind their head, and then I'm getting back in the ambulance or the engine and destroying my own fucking life. I'm doing nothing for me. Why don't I love me? So I tell them, love yourself, and love yourself more than the strangers that you're going to serve 50,000 times a year in your department.
Is that one of the crazy dynamics? We'll tell people how to get help. We'll show people how to get help. We'll do everything we can to help. But then we turn around, and what do we do for ourselves? Nothing. And then we expect things to change. And what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. It's unbelievable, that dynamic. It blows me away. I've done it myself. You've done it yourself.
Yeah. I mean, how many times in the squad car, man, did you give people superb service? You brought them out of a horrible mindset. You gave them resources. You held their hand. You probably embraced them. You gave them every love, and they left there stronger and better and got help. And then you get back in your car and go home and become a monster, or your thoughts become monstrous. I don't know. It's a mystery, but I can promise you, anybody listening to this, watching this, they can sit back and say they're not feeling some of it. They are. You don't get out of this work without something. I'm not saying every call you're going to develop post-traumatic stress, because for me, a lot of it was outside the yellow tape that broke me the most. I did a pretty good job dealing with what happened inside the yellow tape. I mean, there are those calls that hang on both of our minds forever, but inside the yellow tape, I did a pretty good job. It was outside the yellow tape that seemed to crush me, and then when that started to crush me, so did inside the yellow tape. So, yeah, man, it's just something in us as first responders, emergency services. I don't know why we have. If we could get to the bottom of that one, we would save a lot of lives, and we're hitting away at it, man. There's somebody right now that's thinking, I have anger problems. My marriage is shit. I'm having infidelities. I'm doing some bad things. Maybe I should go talk to somebody, and maybe that will happen after this episode. Somebody will say, damn, they were kind of talking about me. And we are. We're talking about you and him and me, all three of us. So,
Yeah, exactly.
Go get help.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, I was having a conversation with my buddy Taylor Kavanaugh. He's a former SEAL. And we were speaking about everyone thinking that everyone else is squared away. And Taylor was speaking about two guys in particular. They had pretty big social media presence, and they were both SEAL Team 6 guys. And it was post-career, so they were in the business world. They had stellar careers, went into this. And he's like, brother, I'm watching them. And he's like, man, why can't I have it all figured out like such and such and such and such? And then bam, each of them just, it had been going on in their lives, but finally it came to light what had been going on and how they were feeling. And everyone's a disaster, man. Never think that Kenny's got to figure it out, Mike's got to figure it out. We're all disaster areas in our own respects.
Yes.
So never think that everyone else, you're the only guy that doesn't have it figured out. Fucking no one's got it figured out. As David Goggins says, everyone is out of their minds, man. It's just who can make it look the best.
Yeah.
And that's the best thing I could tell guys and girls. Like, we're all shit shows.
Yeah.
But, first of all, don't compare yourself to anyone else, because you're you, they're them, that's it. But don't think that everyone else has got it squared away, man.
Yeah.
But the way to get it squared away as best you can is to seek help if you need help. There is nothing. Listen, if you're having a bad day and you're not okay, that is perfectly fine. Number one. Number two, if you need help, it is perfect to go seek it, because no Kenny or Mike is coming to your house and throwing you over our shoulders and taking you to go seek it.
Right.
You must raise your hand. But it is out there. It's all over the place available for you. But again, no one is coming to save the day. And if you expect what you've been doing to suddenly change magically and start working successfully for you, I'm sorry, you're out of your mind, because it's not going to change.
Yeah.
That's the one big thing. If you don't change, then nothing else that's been bothering you is going to either.
Yeah, and you have to realize that it may not take you going to rehab. It may not
Yeah.
take you even letting your department know. It may take you contacting this man right here and wanting to have a conversation with him, wanting to sit with him and talk. It may take just that. It might take him helping you get on some kind of nutritional routine. It may take him coaching you out of some of your bad habits. It might not mean you have to tell your department you're struggling or the world. It might just mean you need to lean on him because, like I tell people all the time, I don't have the same struggles Mike has, but evidently we've both had them, and somehow we've both got up from them. So we can help direct you to someone who can help you. You'd be surprised at the people who have been through really hard times and have got back up again.
Yeah.
And sometimes it just takes leaning into that guy and saying, hey, man, I know you've been through hard times. You had 30 years in the police. I know you've had relationship problems possibly. What did you do? How did you do this? Because I'm going through that. Don't think it looks like this big giant, you're suspended from work, admin's going to know. It just might take sitting with this motherfucker right here and telling him, maybe through tears, that you're hurting and help me. Help me. It might be all you need.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I just saw something. It was a study done, and the percentage was incredibly high of people that just spoke to someone once or twice, not necessarily even professionals. It could be Kenny talking to Mike or Mike talking to Kenny. And the percentage of guys and girls who were back on track and said their lives are, happy again was astronomically high. It blew me away. I'm talking like, I think it was 65% or something like that.
Yeah.
Just in a simple conversation, man. Just getting things off your chest. I mean, think about it. And sometimes in your life where you've spoken about something that's been eating you alive, just speak to someone. The relief that comes over you is incredible.
Relief.
Yeah.
So if you're listening to this and there is something circling in your life and you're going down a drain, just remember, it doesn't mean you're going to have to go to rehabs and all these centers. It might just mean you email this guy. You shoot somebody an email. You just get it off of your chest that you're struggling to somebody who is strong as fuck and who has struggled. And I saw that survey you're talking about, and it was incredible that they didn't need anything else. They just needed someone else to understand that, hell, I'm struggling and so have you. And there's real power in getting together and being at tables with people who've been through hard times and have gotten up. There's this funny saying out there that they're sit with warriors, the conversation's different. Man, it's true. I don't know who started that or who said that. And I don't mean warriors with, not every warrior carries a weapon. Not every warrior carries, a warrior can be a mother who lost her husband unexpectedly in a construction accident. That's a warrior who's continuing to be a mother. I'm saying you sit with warriors, the conversation's different. Sit with some.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And I agree with you. It's not just guys who are veterans and first responders doing all this that are warriors, man. It's people that don't quit. You get up, you could be in the deepest, darkest depression, man, but you're just one foot in front of the other. And, you just, once you quit, you lose.
Yeah.
That's it. Do not quit. It's all you have to do is keep going forward. Because I promise you, every situation is temporary. Nothing is permanent in life, as you see. The only thing that is constant is change, and your situation is going to change.
Right.
So let's get back to your career now. From 13 to 20, you're really going through it. What happens in 2020 to kind of, turn the tables?
Yeah, I mean, I started having what I consider, and 2 years ago, I never would have said this on podcast. I started having like suicidal almost visions. Like I kept telling myself, if I could just get my daughter to 18, I mean, what does that mean?
Wow.
If I could just get her to 18, everything would be okay, which everything was okay. I wasn't okay.
Did you think you were a burden to her? Sorry to interrupt. Did you think you were a burden to her?
A little bit. I felt like she needed her mom more than she needed her dad, even though even though she tells me that's insane. I was everything. I did everything I could do. I just had survivor's guilt. There was a lot of shame and guilt and wishing that it had been me, because I felt every little girl needed her mother, not her dad. So,
Yeah.
so I started having
Which
these
is
thoughts.
wrong for those
I
of you
started having
watching.
these thoughts of not being here anymore, and and just everything was escalating and getting worse and worse and worse. And a buddy of mine, Tom Showalter, him and I went on vacations together. We were great friends. He was a firefighter, and I was going to finally tell him what I'm going through, because in April of 2020 we were going to meet for lunch. Well, COVID was happening during 2020, and we couldn't go inside anywhere, so we met off Interstate 95. And he's a firefighter, I'm a firefighter, we're best friends. I'm in the gear, he's in the gear. I know what an overturned vehicle smells like, so does he, so he's the prime guy to talk to, right? So
Yep.
I tell myself the whole ride there, I'm finally going to tell somebody I'm struggling, and I am promoted to lieutenant. I'm running a great shift. I'm getting great EDPs. My life inside the yellow tape is strong. Outside the yellow tape is burning down. And I sit with that guy for over 6 hours off Interstate 95, and we got up, and I kept feeling just something, say something, Kenny, say something, Kenny. He handed me a check because we were about to go to the beach in August for a week together in Topsail, North Carolina. Put the check in my pocket. I'm like, now or never. What do I do? Man, he drives north and I drive south, and I told myself, well, I'll talk to him next time. Well, 17 days later, I get a phone call that he had killed himself, and now he lives on my wrist forever. And to answer your question, the turning point was at one of his memorial services. I just had enough. Enough was enough, and I decided to really take a deep dive into myself and finally open up. At one of his services, a person sat beside me and said, this job sucks, man, and there's nobody to talk to. And I had an outburst. I hadn't talked to a therapist yet, and I just screamed, what the fuck do you mean there's nobody to talk to? Look around this place. All you see is short haircuts and muscles and tattoos and badges and flags and attitudes and pride. There's plenty of people to talk to. There's too many of us to not talk to anybody or to feel alone. There's so many people. What are you talking about? Family, spouses. And he gets up and he walks off. And I'm like, wow, I'm losing it here at a funeral, at a service. And the next person sits down and they say, man, Kenny, this keeps happening because this job just sucks. Police work, fire, it just sucks. And once again, I just finished talking about this in Kentucky. I said, no. You know what? It's not this job. And I scribbled it down on what I call the tear-stained napkin. I said, it's outside the yellow tape, man. It's divorce. It's child custody battles. It's financial problems. It's watching your parents age. It's losing a child. It's being the caregiver of a dying parent. It's so much shit on the outside of the yellow tape that's burning us down, and we're not taking care of it. Tom was going through some really serious outside the yellow tape stuff, man. And I saw it, and I didn't ask him about it. I knew he had ran 5 pediatric calls in one shift, 2 shifts, 5 traumatic events in one day, and most people run 3 or 4 in a lifetime. It's outside the yellow tape that's burning us down. It's not just this job. And he walks off too. And I scribbled down on a piece of paper, there are too many of us to ever feel alone, and I wrote down Operation Yellow Tape. Of course, I've changed it now, because at first I put operating inside the yellow tape fucking sucks. That doesn't look good on shirts, or I don't really want to say a presentation acting that way. But for me, it was that moment right there at his funeral, realizing there's so many people here who would probably listen to me and probably want to know what I'm going through. And how can there be 200 responders here with their wives and husbands and children and kids, and nobody gets us? Well, we do get us. And I went home and I said enough is enough. And I did a very short video on Instagram back in 2020 before I even knew what Instagram was. And I propped my phone up and I started talking about hypervigilance and anger and crying in the shower and punching things and going to clubs and bars when my daughter was being watched by my family and looking for somebody looking for trouble and then giving them some trouble, getting myself punched in the face, punching people in the face, drinking too much, going to the doctor and faking out doctors to get a pill or two, all these things. And I just said it. And a buddy of mine's like, man, you send that and your career as a lieutenant's going to stay a career as a lieutenant. I said, well, it's either that or you guys coming to my funeral, brother, because I am in a bad spot. I don't know what to do. Long story short, I went outside and I came back in and I picked my little phone up and there was hundreds of messages from people all over the country, man. That's my wife. That's my daughter. That was my grandfather. That was my neighbor. All these things you're talking about, Kenny. I don't know who you are, but everything you're talking about, I saw in my uncle. I saw in my aunt. My dad killed himself. He was a cop. My uncle killed himself. He was a fireman. My brother was a dispatcher. He killed himself. And the Operation Yellow Tape motto of that there are too many of us to ever feel alone kind of kicked off, and I started to embrace it and lean into it. And I went and got myself therapy, and I started really diving into that and really being open and honest and not being afraid to cry like I did about 5 minutes ago on here, and admitting to some things I'm very embarrassed about, fighting in clubs and lying about a kidney stone. But it is the only way for me to express how I was feeling and what I was going through. It's a shame it took his death, and I would do anything to go back because I feel he was waiting too. I feel that he was waiting for me to say something, and I feel so many of our brothers and sisters who have taken their life, they're waiting for that one person possibly to sit down and just share. Not all of them. I know some people set their minds to it and we're never going to change their mind. I understand that. But there's a lot of people out there that are possibly just waiting for that one moment where you're going to come real clean and not look like you just said, so squeaky clean and have it all together and your Instagram's perfect and your body's perfect and your marriage is perfect. They're just waiting for, is this person fucked up like me? And once they hear that, they can start processing that. So for 2020, it was his funeral that started me never not saying his name out loud and continuing to try to educate and push people forward to just come out of the shadows. If I can save you 7 years of this, just listen to what I have to say. You may not agree with everything. You may not agree with all my ways of coming out of this, but just give me a shot to talk to you.
Yeah, it's amazing, brother. It's truly incredible when you hear what I'm about to say because these stories are so similar. After I went to my first ayahuasca retreat, it was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That Tuesday, I sat down in my backyard and I went Facebook Live for 35 minutes and was telling people what I'd been going through. I cried. Never would have been able to do that in my life. And had I done that, I would have been so embarrassed about it before. I was proud of myself. Went inside, told my wife, and I'm like, man, I'm proud for crying. Next day, I received 3 calls from close friends who had been going through it. I had no idea, one of which had a gun in his mouth in a not too distant past. Blew me away. And talked all through him at length and came back inside and told my wife, I'm like, this is where I'm supposed to be. For whatever reason, the universe is allowing me to be vulnerable now, and I'm telling my story. And this was 35 minutes and 3 guys. And actually it was a family friend, a female also. That's 4 people that got in touch with me about going through it. I'm like, man, if these 4 get in touch, first of all, there's plenty others that haven't. But can you imagine how many other people are going through it?
Right. Can you imagine how many people did not contact you but saw them in you and made other calls to other people? I mean, just being honest and raw and vulnerable, it's very hard. And the story is embarrassing and it's hurtful, but man, it's the only way. There are too many of us to feel alone, and the pains won't be the same, and the struggles won't be the same, and the thoughts won't be the same. And I never thought in 2002 I'd be sitting on a podcast getting choked up or admitting to crying in the shower and then having great high moments and wonderful moments. Everything wasn't bad, don't get me wrong, man. My career was great, but there was a lot of 7 years of a struggle. So like you, I could never imagine sitting here, but I know the universe has me here for a reason, has you here for a reason, and there's somebody who will change the direction of their life and their family's life from hearing men and women talk about these things. And we're getting better. We're not where we should be, and you and I are on the front lines of it with a lot of people with us. It's a team effort here, and it's hard. It's hard work.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's not, and it's serious work. I don't take any of this lightly.
No.
I've spoken to you before about my opioid addiction. I had to go to rehab in 2012, and before I spoke about it publicly for the first time, I was talking to Taylor. I'm like, bro, I don't know if I could do this, but I have to do this. and it was embarrassing. You know, I've forgiven myself, and now I can speak about it. It's easy to do. But again, it's one of those things. In some respects, I'm glad I went through it, because now any room that I enter, if I'm speaking to a guy or a girl with a substance issue, sit down, man. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I know about that house of fucking cards that's about to fold at any second. You know, I know exactly what you were talking about. And, you know, I know you and Jason Redman are tight. I remember his Sean Ryan podcast. He talked about his biggest missteps, you know, embarrassing stuff, about arrogance that he had been conducting his life with, and the humility with which he was speaking about it now.
Oh yeah.
Is so impressive to be able to open yourself up. You know, think about this, the guys and girls watching, to get on something like this where potentially millions of people could see your worst missteps in life, and you're speaking about it publicly and acknowledging it. Man, it takes balls to do that.
Yeah.
And, you know, guys like him doing that too. Maybe it's not in the sorrow that we're speaking about here, but it's just incredible, and it shows other men and women. It's such a powerful message that, you know, you could do whatever you did, but you could also come back from it.
Yeah.
You know, we're human beings. Everyone makes mistakes. I've yet to meet a perfect human being.
Yeah, Jason is one of my best friends, and one of the most important things he's taught me as a friend is you have no idea how much you can teach people through talking about your embarrassments and your struggles. If you think you're just going to shine up that lieutenant's badge and stick it in a shadow box and talk about all the great times, yeah, you'll. Some people will be impressed with your career, but I can promise you, if you don't talk about the struggles and the pain, and this was before I got help. He knew some of these things. If you in 2020, if you don't read the book Overcome, you don't read my book Overcome, and start talking about some of these problems, man, you did a job for a very long time. You will reach more people by just being honest, because no one is going to have this perfectly wonderful career and not have things knock them down. And it's so true when he talks about that, and he's so open about his struggles as a young SEAL and as a husband, and just the mistakes that he made. And he's totally correct. Out of all the books he's wrote, you know, Overcome and The Trident crushes everything. It talks about the failures, and you and I are talking about failures right now. And everybody watching this podcast or listening is going to think about some failure they've made. Were they demoted? Did they get fired? You know, what happened? It's not the end. Jason often says the end is the door to new beginnings, and if you can wrap your mind around that, you can get back to your feet. Getting off that X is the goal. So, yeah, man, it is hard, exhausting work, talking about some of your biggest embarrassing moments and hurtful moments.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the hardest thing in the world. You know, I mentioned Taylor Cavanaugh before. I'd hired him as my mindset coach, and the reason for that was I watched his videos. So Taylor was a Navy SEAL. Through his own admission, he essentially sabotaged his career, lost his trident, was kicked out of the SEAL teams, ended up moving to France to become a French Foreign Legionnaire for 5 years, got his mind right. Prior to doing so, he sat in a truck with a shotgun for 3 days and was about to commit suicide, but he did not do it. He went there for 5 years, didn't know anyone, didn't know the language, got his mind right, did what he needed to do, and came back, and he's flourishing now. And I said, that is one of the most powerful stories I've ever heard in my life. The fact that he didn't kill himself leads me to believe that he is the man to help me with this mission that I'm on now. Because I had no idea how I was going to implement what I wanted to do, how I was going to go about it. But, you know, we've established a great relationship. And the guy has been so honest about his biggest missteps in life. And again, every podcast guest that I've had, this is why I love all my guests. Everyone will speak frankly about their biggest missteps and their lowest points in their life. Yeah. And guys and girls watching this right now, man, we all go through it. The best speech I think I've ever heard in a movie was Rocky Balboa talking to his son in Rocky Balboa about how no one punches harder than life, man. I don't care how good looking you are, rich you are, how strong you are. Yeah. No one is ducking the punches of life. But it's how you get up. What you do from that point on that matters. Not the fact that you get knocked down. We all get knocked down.
Yeah.
But will you get up, man? And when you reach those highs after those lows, you appreciate it more.
Right.
You know, if you don't have those lows, man, how are you ever going to really appreciate those highs that you're going to get? And the highs usually outweigh the lows by a lot.
Yeah, I remember I used to tell my daughter a lot. Life is going to punch you in the teeth a lot. You're gonna you're gonna get you're not gonna get the job more. You're not gonna get related. Life is going to punch and hit and fight like hell for as long as you're here, and it's about you getting up. Life is too short to be at war with yourself mentally and emotionally and physically every single day. Her and I both know this. You know this. Life
Yeah.
is too short to be at war with yourself, and you got to keep getting up. And I'm not the guy to sit here. I never had a gun in my mouth. I never had a drug problem. I drank too much during my struggles, so I can't talk about what it feels like to have a gun in my mouth. But what I can tell you is I was heading that way because I started thinking about it. I started visualizing my funeral. Who would come? Who would care? Who would be there? What would it look like? I was having this reoccurring. I talked about it in Kentucky this week. I was having this reoccurring statement in my mind that if I can just get her to 18, and things were going well. I mean, she was 16. I mean, things weren't going horrible all the time, but why was I having this repeated thought? And I'm telling you all this because it starts off small. It starts off very small, and it's like you mentioned earlier. It just starts to pile on and pile on and pile on, and next thing you know, a thought of that leads into a worse mental wellness decline, leads to a gun in the mouth, doing bad things. I don't want anybody to think that I'm sitting here saying I know what that feels like, because thank goodness I got help before I got to that point where I sat on that bed like Jason Redman and others with the gun to the head. And but I did have the thoughts, and I did think about. Sometimes I would glance at my shield. I carry a shield, 9mm, and I would look at it once in a blue moon and have these weird thoughts, man. How being gone might be better, and drinking a little too heavy. And it starts small, y'all. It starts off small. You'll be the first to feel the symptom. Me having that thought, me having that very first thought, if I can just get her to 18, what if I would have gone for help then? What if I'd have known a man like you that very moment? What if I could have done something immediately? You can stop yourself from a long, again, life is too short, and you've done too many great things on and off these jobs, or not these jobs. Just in life in general, you have to love yourself, and it starts by being very, very, very honest, and being honest about your struggles, to me, are just as exhausting as being hypervigilant. Hypervigilant is exhausting feeling, but being real and honest and open about all of this stuff is just as exhausting. But it's needed, and there's so many people who feel just like you.
Yeah, it's the truth. And thankfully, I never had the suicidal ideology either. But for those of you going through it right now, don't let it get to that point. It doesn't have to get to that point. And don't let it get to that point before you say, I need help. There's no need. Again, like we were just speaking earlier, in something as little as speaking to someone about it, doesn't even have to be a professional necessarily.
No.
You can relieve yourself of that burden. It's not that complicated, but you have to reach out and get that help. It could be a best friend, anyone, whoever it is. So,
and I'm not Nostradamus by any means, but if you're having those thoughts, and you're hearing those statements, and you're continuing to spiral and run the calls and see the trauma and deal with life outside the yellow tape and relationship problems, and I'm telling you, that situation is going to come for you. It's coming. Maybe not. I'm not Nostradamus, but nothing changes if nothing changes. And if you continue to repeatedly see, hear, smell, and do the traumas of emergency services on top of a life outside the yellow tape, you will be sitting on a bed with a weapon in your hand. It won't just clear up out of the blue. It's going to take heavy work and leaning into how you feel. But again, it's not always going to take needing to go to 15 $75 an hour therapy visits. Some of my strong, yes, I've been to those visits, but some of my strongest work in my own self, mentally, emotionally, socially, spiritually, financially, every legally has been sitting with men and women who aren't even certified in anything except for life.
yeah.
Except for life. and they've been very open and honest with me and told me the truth. They didn't have any big names behind them. They weren't a doctor, they weren't a counselor, they weren't a therapist, but they've gotten up 100% of the times. From 100% of the times they've been knocked down, and those were where some of my biggest breakthroughs happened. Sitting across from men and women who have been through really hard times and gotten up.
Yeah, some of the best certification is life experience, period.
Yes.
You know? So, all right, so now this is kind of the origination of the old tape. How do you further start this organization? You know, what's going into it? What's your mindset? What are you trying to accomplish?
Yeah, the first thing I wanted to accomplish was I didn't know how to do it because Virginia, we don't have a whole lot going on here. I'm starting to realize as I travel, other states like yours and some other states are kind of doing some bigger things. But my mindset was, how do I have an event where people who wear the uniform and people don't get to be together? Not just a fire conference or a corporate conference. I want both. I want men and women who don't do this job and who do this job together in the same room, learning about each other, learning about emergency services, learning about what they do for a living. I want them in the same room, breaking bread at tables. One's a lawyer and one's a firefighter. One's a construction worker and one does lawn care. One's a dispatcher. You get the point. That's what I
like that theory.
That's what I wanted. So my mindset was that I want to start educating the public, and I did my first Operation Yellow Tape event in 2022. There may have been 27 people there. We had nearly 200 last year. So
Nice.
my mindset was, in order for us to punch this in the teeth, we've got to get people around who love us and also love their communities, and they want to talk about their troubles too. I mean, last year at our conference, we had a guy stand up who worked in real estate. He had one of the most traumatic stories I'd ever heard. He also shared with us. Now, he hadn't had 200 of them in his career, but he had enough. So my mindset was, how do I do that? I wanted to get in front of recruits. I wanted to get in front of family members. I wanted to share what almost took me out and how it's not just some scary victim story. There is light, and if you fight hard enough around men and women who are fighters, the lights are going to come back on. So the mission of Operation Yellow Tape is to provide quality resources, and I'm not always that quality resource. My job is to get somebody towards your podcast, towards that psychiatrist, towards that counselor, towards that dietitian, towards that coach, towards that financial advisor. Quality resources. There's so much shit out there. So quality resources, education, and community. That was on my mind. I wanted to start getting quality resources in the hands of people who didn't think resources were available. Because like you said earlier, they are available. Yeah. They're everywhere. Now, there's some scammy things going on, but I wanted to be the guy who dug deep into who you are and to let people know this guy's the real deal. He's just not doing a podcast because he's fucking bored. He's been there, done that, and has the the experience and the scars to prove it. I need that quality resource going towards this man and towards other people, towards Jason Redman's story, towards the wall note that Jason wrote. You know, I knew that was what sparked.
Actually, can you expound on that wall note? Because I know what you're talking about, but I think it's fantastic what he did. Can you just tell everyone what you're referring to?
Yeah, when Jason was in the hospital, everybody kept
Ken, I'm sorry, 1 second to interrupt. Just for those of you who don't know, Jason Redman was a Navy SEAL, and during an operation, he got shot in the face, almost lost his life. And his story of recovery, recuperation is just so inspirational. He's got a few books out. If you guys are not familiar, Google him, watch him speak. His Sean Ryan podcast is one of the most powerful things you could ever watch. It's incredible the progress he's made and the lives that he continues to touch to this day. But as far as what Kenny is going to speak about now, the note, I love it.
Yeah, Jason says he was in the hospital and he had been like he says, he had been shot through the head. He had been just about lost his left arm. He was disfigured, never to look the same again. And he said everyone who walked in the room treated him like a victim. He heard whispers of people in the hallway saying, "What a shame. That guy will never be the same again. How pathetic is this? This is terrible." And he wrote a sign, and he calls it the sign on the door. And that right there is what he wrote. That's not the original one, but it's a copy of it. And pretty much it says, for all who come in this room, I'm going to paraphrase it, for all who come in this room, don't come in here with pity. I'm a fucking warrior, and I will get back up, and I will put every ounce of everything that I have back into my life to be better again. I want to live. I want to be strong. So if you come in this room with sorrow and sorry for me, you're in the wrong room. And it went on to inspire millions of people. It's all over the place. It's been on 2 presidents' desks, and
I love it.
It's what Jason lives by, and he lives by that sign on the door. And it's true. He wrote it in marker while he was trait. The book Overcome. If you haven't read the book Overcome, if you haven't looked up some of Jason's work, I want to get Jason on here. It would be a phenomenal episode. I would have you in tears.
Love to have him.
We need that. I'm talking to him now. He knows I'm on here tonight. He would be in tears. You would be in laughter. But there are certain people that bring out the best in all of us, and he's one of them. So not to give a huge Jason Redmond plug, but check out jasonredmond.com. Follow him on Instagram. The man is doing big things, and he is, as I'm telling you, I've seen behind the curtains of some of the jobs that you and I, the lanes we're in. He is as real gets. Yeah. He is as real as real gets. It's not about dollar signs. It's not about look at me and my flat. He is as genuine. I can't wait to go to his 50th birthday party next Saturday and wish his old ass happy birthday. He got the best hair to be 50, that motherfucker.
It's not right, man.
Yeah, but that right there, there's a lot of people, and Jason talks about it. We all have signs on the door. What is yours going to be?
Exactly.
When are you going to tell yourself, I'm not a victim? I'm not done. This is not the end for me. This is just a short moment in my life that caused a huge knockdown. And, I have 40 other years that I have lived. And why am I letting one single moment define who I am and how I act? That's what happened to me. Why did I let that one single act define 7 years of my life? I had many, 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 many strong years before that. But the job is emergency services. We don't have healthy jobs. We see brains and insides, and it messes with us bad. But one of the things I get from Jason and other people is we're not defined by that, but we let it. We have what we call obsessive comparison disorder. We have all these things where we're comparing everybody, and then we remember the bad more than the good.
Yeah,
and it drains us.
Absolutely. It's funny you talk about never being a victim. My mom was dying of pancreatic cancer last year. She passed last June, and unfortunately, due to an evil sister, my mom and I were estranged at the time of her death. So I was kind of recounting the circumstances last year to a mentor of mine, George Faraday. And as he's listening to this, he said, Morgs, you're a warrior, but you cannot be a victim. Your mind will never reconcile that. And not that I was talking to him in a victim mentality. I was just literally recounting the circumstances as they were. He's like, either you're a warrior or you're a victim, and you're a warrior. And for those of you watching, you have to decide yourself, are you a warrior or a victim?
That's right.
And he said, if you are a warrior, which indeed you are, he goes, then instead of ever looking at anything from a victim mentality, thank the fucking universe for every single thing it puts you through, no matter how visceral that pain. He said it's putting you through for a reason. You may not know it at the time, but you're going to figure out why, number one. Number two, after you go through it, you must feel the pain. You must heal from the pain. You can't dull it with substances. You can't push it away. You must deal with it head on. Once you do, you're going to be a healthy individual. You're going to be able to have healthy relationships. You're going to be stronger. You're going to be more resilient. He said, that's the way you have to approach life. And that conversation was so mind-blowing to me because I never thought about it like that. I never had a victim mentality. But think about it. Sometimes we're like, yo, man, I only have bad luck. Like you were talking about the black cloud, not necessarily for a victim mentality, but,
right.
Like, why me? Why this? What? No, fuck that. Don't ever say why me or adopt that mentality. You're going through it for a reason. Figure out, and it may take a while, what that reason was, and then thank the universe for putting you through it at that point. Because If you look at all the stuff we've been through, you individually throughout your life, man, there's nothing you can't handle.
No.
Just think about it. Sit down and think about all the shit you've been through.
Yeah.
And you're still sitting here with your ass in that chair, ready to rock and roll. You can heal from anything.
Yeah, I urge people all the time to go home and just journal down. If you don't already journal, just journal down some of the hard things you've had to get through and then get back up the next day. And you're going to realize how strong you are. And then you're going to journal on the other page how many things you didn't get through. Well, the answer is fucking zero because you're still sitting there. You're still there. So one page has everything you've done, and the other page of things you didn't get through was at this point zero. That's why addressing it has to be very, very swift and consistent, because that one page may have a 1 on it, and when it has a 1 on it, you're gone. But sit down and think about the things inside and outside the yellow tape you've gotten through, whether it be divorce, whether it's family problems, brothers and sisters, whatever it is, what you have got through. And the list is very, very, very long. And if you're still sitting there writing, the list to the left is very fucking blank because you've gotten through them all. And that is a visual sometimes that firefighters need to see, because we're dumb. We need to see, I've gotten through all this, and this is blank. So you're right, man. Once the victim mindset creeps in, you can't listen to it. It's lies. It's and it creeps in quickly, and it creeps in quietly, and just begins to do more and more and more and more damage around your entire life.
It's the truth. Yeah, and I was talking to my wife the other day. How come that negative voice inside your head is so much louder than the positive one? You know, it screams when it's negative, but it's kind of a whisper, a dull whisper when it's positive.
Yeah.
That same voice that got you into the negative state is from the mind that can get you back into that positive state with that positive voice. You know, that's how strong the mind is. As bad as you feel, depression-wise or whatever, that same mind can put you up at the heights that you never thought possible. It's the way you live your life and perceive things, and, you know, the perspective that you take during the events that occur to you during your life.
Yeah, and I think we have something called recency bias disorder. And I have a quote up here that says, "Your life moves." Every day I have to read it. Your life moves in the direction of your strongest thoughts. I don't know where I've seen it. I don't know where I got it, but I believe that your life moves in the direction of your strongest thoughts. Yeah. And if your strongest thoughts are negative, and if your strongest thoughts are a victim, then you're going to have recency bias disorder, and you're going to constantly think about that more than thinking about the good stuff. You know, it's a fact that your life moves in the direction of your strongest thoughts. And if your strongest thoughts are, I want to be mentally, emotionally, socially, and spiritually and financially happier and stronger and better, that's the direction you're going to go. If you continue to think about that you're negative, you're the black cloud, you're all these things, you're going to start seeing more black clouds and more problems occur. It's just, it's a bizarre way to look at it, but that quote right there stuck out to me, and I look at it every single morning, every single afternoon, and every single night as I'm wrapping things up around here, because it's true. As a first responder battling post-traumatic stress injury and now post-traumatic stress growth, I'm a work in progress. Please don't get off this podcast and think, he's got it all figured out. Man, look at that guy. No. Yeah, there are some days I wake up spitting mad for no reason. It can be a beautiful sunrise. It can be a gorgeous day. The coffee smelling perfect. Everyone in my family is healthy. And I can be in one of the shittiest moods and mad at the world because I'm a work in progress, because I have post-traumatic stress symptoms. Doesn't mean it's a end of it for me. It just take continued work.
Exactly. Again, it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
You know, don't wake up every day thinking that you're going to be fucking skipping down the block, you know, singing nursery rhymes, because it's not going to happen. It's just not the way life is.
No,
you know?
And a lot of people think that, and they think even when they go to get big time help that now they're completely okay. And once I got a friend going through it now. I got a friend going through it right now. He went away for 40 days. He came back all fired up and ready to take on the world. He started dipping back down into a little bit of depression, and now he's all in his head again. I mean, you're gonna have setbacks. You got to get on
Yeah.
Zooms with these guys. You got to start putting the tools into effect. You got to lean into what's causing the anxiety. You just can't come back and sit on the couch and everything's great. I mean, it's going to be some really hard times when you get back from some of these centers, or some of the things that you go to get help with. And we just got to do a better job too of realizing that every day is not going to be roses after trauma. It's just not.
No, 100%. And a lot of my healing, as I've said, has occurred with psychedelic therapies, ayahuasca being the main. And one important thing is, essentially, like you were just talking about your buddy coming back, you come back from some of these retreats, man, and you are on cloud nine because you've made certain breakthroughs. But it's important to realize that you're not gonna stay up here the whole time. It's gonna ebb and flow, number one. Number two, you need to integrate things into your life. Like you were talking about journaling before. I journal, not every day, but journaling now has become a part of my life. And I don't know, I think things just hit differently when you write them down.
Yes.
And when you read them back, as opposed to just thinking them in your head. Mm-hmm. No matter what it is. If I write it down and I kind of read what I wrote, I don't know, it totally hits differently. You've done the same. I mean, it sounds like you're experiencing the same effect.
Yes.
You could echo that sentiment.
Oh yeah, I love to journal. There's something powerful to putting ink on paper, and reading your goals, and reading your wins, and reading your losses, and reading why they were a loss and why it was a win. For me, it's so important. Even during my day as a businessman, I want to write down what made today successful. What could I have done better? What could I have done more of? Physically, what could I have done more of? Why do I feel sluggish today? Well, maybe it was because of the milkshake and the candy bar. Journaling is powerful, especially the mental and emotional side of it when you really pour onto it and read it back to yourself. But I'm telling you, you got to also do the page where you put your wins and you put your victories and how many times you got up, and then flip to the page of how many times you didn't. That page will be, if you're still breathing, like Jason says, if you're still here, that page is blank. The page is blank. It should give you the power to know that fucking page will stay blank if you continue to work.
Yeah, hugely important. So let me ask you now, you're on the public speaking circuit. I love, it's funny, man, some people are just born orators, and when I listen to you speak, it sounds like you've been doing it for years and years and years, when in fact, you never had the thought to really do it. You said yourself, you never thought you never saw yourself in the space in which you occupy now. Just kind of tell us about the experience of going and speaking and the feedback that you get. I just love what you're doing, the message, you're changing people's lives. It's got to be the most fulfilling thing you've ever done.
Yeah, it is. I was asked, about a year or 2 years ago, what did you do? Kenny, we've heard the story. Yeah, it's sad, and we've all been through it. But what did you do to get to a point where you can talk about this and be stronger? And I talk about something called the HELP acronym. It's Health, Educate, Launch, and People. I talk about a hope approach. I talk about something called Calm in the Chaos. But for me, I just knew I needed to get in front of people and share not only the story, but what are the proactive practices to put into your life to leave. I want you to leave listening to me speak. I want you to almost leave forgetting the story I told you, but remembering some of the proactive practices I've talked about putting into your life, no matter what it might be. You only know what you need to do, health, educate, launch, and people wise in my acronym. But I want you to remember what I talked about, but I want those proactive practices to be the most important part. I had my first opportunity with Jason, and he took me to Chicago there to support him. And he kind of told me, he goes, hey man, in 12 minutes, you're going up on stage. You got 12 minutes to talk. And I looked at him and I'm, what? Yeah.
Really?
And that's a true story, brother. At the Well Resource Center in Chicago, he says, you've got 12 minutes and you're going to talk for 12 minutes. And then I'm going to come up there and I'm going to blow the doors down for 2 hours. And I said, I can't do that. I don't know what that looks like or what that feels like. And he turned to me and he literally said, you walk your ass up there and you do what you have to do. There's somebody in this room that needs to hear what you have to say. There's one person, and that's where that one comes from. There's one person here that needs to hear you. And he literally, you can ask him, he literally says, go fucking do it. And for me, I'll be honest, it became contagious. That one person did come up to me and grab my hand and cried on my shoulder. A man with a big beard and a big patch and a big everything. And it became to the point where maybe this is how I get through to people. Maybe being in front of them and sharing some really hard moments in my life that are embarrassing and that are knockdowns, and then sharing with them what I use to get myself to a growth period and that I'm continuing to use to get myself to a growth period. So yeah, it started here in Virginia. Um, it's blossomed to several fire academies here locally with us, with the VFOA and the Virginia Fire Rescue Conference, to now some corporate stuff, to now I'm in places like near you in Port Orange. I'll be in Tennessee soon, Kentucky. People are just reaching out and saying, "Hey, man, um, what's up? What are you talking about?" And my people are seeing suicides at a high rate. Um, we've had 6 line duty deaths, and my people are struggling. Are you willing to come out here and talk? And I'm trying to fine tune that. I'm not your average speaker. I'm not perfect. I mispronounce words. I don't. I say mental health presentation is done a little bit differently because it is. It's a little bit differently, but the feedback, to answer, man, and thank you for asking. The feedback has been incredible.
Great.
It's just been incredible for people to walk up to you and say, "I think I know what's wrong with me now." We've all seen the books, read the books, we've seen some of the stuff, but this hit me, and I'm not the only person doing this. There's so many people working very, very hard, clinicians, and this is just my little small part with OYT. But the feedback has been extremely powerful, especially from the spouses.
Yeah.
I am really passionate about talking to spouses, especially early on. I'm really passionate about talking to recruits really early on. I'm really passionate about talking to retirees because that's hard as shit. I'm passionate about talking to in the middle of your career. I'm passionate to talk to anybody who wants to hear, how do we get to the end of this and hang that helmet on a nail, lay that badge down, take that headset off, remove the keys from the jail cell, whatever emergency services job you have, those scrubs, and you smile when you see that plaque, and you smile when you see that helmet, and not cry in a lonely room because you've chased everybody away. That's my why, is at the end of all this, you haven't chased everyone who loves you away. They're actually there with you in your home, in your family, and you can smile in your garage, not drink your 8th beer and cry about loving strangers more than you loved yourself.
Yeah, I mean, that's powerful. I mean, that's how a real man conducts himself. And, it's great to have clinicians who would spit polished presentations, but you know what? Guys like us hear and know real. So when you're coming up there and you're telling your story and you're bearing your soul, man, that's what guys and girls are listening to. Not necessarily that PhD that's sitting up there that never experienced anything in his or her life, that can't talk about anything other than what they read in a book. It's you talking about what you went through. It's Jason Redman getting on stage talking about what he went through and bearing their souls, man, because that's what's touching them. That's what's getting them to cry, because then they're looking at you. And this is what happened to me when I was watching Eddie Penny. I saw this guy cry on Sean Ryan's podcast as he's recounting the story of the Extortion 17 incident, which a Chinook was shot down in Afghanistan. 17 SEALs were killed. It was the largest loss of life in one incident, including his best friend, Jason Workman. And as he's talking about the story of escorting Jason's body back to his hometown, he started crying and openly weeping. And I simultaneously thought about a call I had 5 years before of a 2-year-old found floating in a pool. Beautiful girl named Dana Sikorsky. And brother, I lost it. Started crying like a fucking baby. And it still blows me away to this day that my first reaction is look inside my house to make sure my wife could not come home from food shopping because someone was so embarrassed about crying. Meanwhile, she's a life coach. She would encourage me to cry, let it out. But that right there, man, showed me that fucking warrior sitting up there crying told me it was okay to do so myself. And not that I'm comparing myself to Eddie Penny in any way, shape, or form, but this is why I bare my soul, because I want to show other men and women out there, more men, because women are more in touch with their emotions than us, as we know,
Right.
that it's okay to fucking sit there and cry. It's okay to feel. We're human beings first, man, no matter what uniform we wear. You're a human first, and life is meant to be felt, not to be pushed away and calloused up so you feel nothing to avoid the pain that we see and feel.
And you would be shocked at how many clinicians are actually listening to your podcast, because in podcasts like yours, because they want to be able to relate to us, and they're clinicians and they have master's degrees and all these blah 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 blah. But listening to this conversation and the ones you've had before me, you'd be shocked at the clinicians that sit down and listen to this to be able to talk the verbiage, talk the terminology, listen to two men and women who have been through these things. So they listen to these talk show, these podcasts, and I agree with you 100%. It's difficult. It's difficult to get real and to get to the point where you're able to talk about it. I haven't got through a presentation yet that I haven't got emotional. Not falling on the floor,
Right.
But I told somebody in Kentucky, I want to be able to get through this one time in almost 2 years now without feeling emotional. And they're like, "Nah, man, don't think like that. That's what we need, because there are people out here who are holding it in. We need to not hold it in."
Yeah, it's important, man. My life changed, brother, because Eddie Penny was crying. So doing the same on stage is going to change someone else's. The entire trajectory of my life was changed because that man. I get emotional now.
Yeah, and let me tell you how small the world is for you, brother. Let me tell you how small the universe is for me and you sitting here right now. I started my career in Virginia Beach Fire Department. There is a, 50-foot long piece of 5-inch hose that the recruits carry around, and it's Workman's name written on it, because Captain Brown was a good friend of his too. And that Workman hose is for PTing and for carrying, and it's right there in Virginia Beach, right down the road from me, and it doesn't touch the ground ever. Extortion 17 is wrote on there. His name is wrote on there. The recruits lift it, they pull it. They don't pull it, they lift it, they move it, they curl it. In so many words, I'm trying to say, what in the world are the chances of the universe having us? You learned that from Penny. The Workman fire hose is down there in Virginia Beach where I started. The universe is telling us one thing: keep doing this. There are people telling us that aren't here anymore. Keep doing what you guys are doing. You're the warriors still left here fighting. But that's just wild to me, thinking about. I want to get a picture of it for you and send it to you. But
Please.
It's a big giant. It's probably 50 foot long, and they carry it everywhere. If you go to Virginia Beach Fire's Instagram page, sometimes you'll see them carrying it around. It's heavy as hell. They do it the Zodiac over their head and over their, But man, it's just, we're meant to be right here. Hard work. You just got emotional. It's hard work. It's draining. We'll both get off this podcast and be a little like, whew, it's hard. But somebody watching this tonight will say, "That's me.
Yeah.
That's my brother.
There are no coincidences. There is no coincidences. You and I are meant to be here right now doing this. I feel like the universe put me where I am now. The universe put you where you are right now individually. We're supposed to be doing exactly what we're doing. You're always where you're supposed to be.
Well,
and I truly believe that.
I appreciate you having me, man. When you reached out to me, I was hoping you weren't just going to do military guys. I remember telling you that. I remember saying, "Hey, man, I hope you do some normal dudes like me, because I don't think guys like the SEALs are normal whatsoever." I know, but they're not normal people. They are fucking super, super weird strength guys. But no, I was
no doubt.
I was hoping you were going to do some everyday emergency services guys like myself, and I'm so honored to be on a podcast where you've had such, in my opinion, heavy hitters and game changers and people who've made you turn your life around. It gets me emotional to think that I'm sitting on a podcast that has had so many amazing people, and will continue to, because I've got so many people I want to feed your direction that I feel
absolutely
can change many people's lives, because I know what your why is. It's not hard to figure that out, and it's not for likes and for real views. Your like is what happened to you a minute ago when you leaned back in that chair and got upset. That's your why. And,
he got me again.
Real knows real.
Yeah, he got me again. And like I said, with you, not want to get emotional, man. Don't ever try not to get emotional, because someone like me is going to be sitting there watching you get emotional. It's going to, this man changed my life, man, by getting emotional. It's fucking so powerful to me. So, Yeah, absolutely, brother. So, listen, it's an honor to have you on here. We'll definitely have to have you on again. Absolutely, no doubt in my mind, if not multiple times. Tell everyone where they can find you. Obviously, all the links will be in the bio, but if they want to locate you, I know you have several social medias, so tell us
Yeah,
all of them.
yeah. You can find me on Instagram at Kenny Mitchell Fire, or you can just go to my website, which is kennymitchelljr.com. But most importantly, I just want to tell people that help is available, and if you're feeling the need that you want help, give somebody a chance to hear you and to see you and to feel you and to understand you. Give someone a chance.
Yeah,
Give them a chance. Let him put you in contact with somebody. Give someone a chance to hear you.
yeah,
You
you're
would
worth it.
be you would be shocked at what other men and women feel like, and you feel just like them. And never forget that your life moves in the direction of your strongest thoughts, and keep those thoughts stronger and lean into them. And brother, it's an honor to be here, man.
Honored to have you, brother.
You're doing amazing work, and hard work, but
Thank
it
you.
must be done.
Yeah,
It must be
absolutely.
done.
It's my life's purpose from here on in. So, it will never stop. Again, it was an honor having you on here. Loved it. Hopefully, we just changed someone's life, and I have no doubt that we did.
I, I think we did, and I appreciate it.
Absolutely, Ken. All right, brother. We will see you soon, guys. If you like what you saw, hit like and subscribe, and I will see you soon. Take care.